Welcome, everyone. We have entered the third week of the Iran war, and we're at a very critical stage. And this is also the most bizarre war ever, and it's very fascinating. And it will also be very consequential, perhaps the biggest geopolitical event since the end of the Soviet Union. So, what's happening? Trump says that the war could end very soon, but he says we must finish the job. And Reza Pahlavi, the son of the Shah of Iran, he lives in the US, and he says we have entered a decisive stage of our final struggle. And as for Israel, it wants a regime change. It doesn't want to end the war. And how about the Iranians? If you look at the Iranian officials, they seem to think that everything is going fine. One person said to a CNN reporter who traveled through Iran that the war could go on for another 10 years. So, what is the truth? What is happening? We will discuss all of that here. And there have also been some really game-changing war tactics. We will discuss that. Things like drones flying over Tehran and coded messages sent by shortwave radio. Very fascinating. And as for Iran, it depends on the people that you speak with. Some will view Iran's uh, the actions as pure terrorism, like in attacking the cargo ships going through the Strait of Hormuz and attacking all the civilian places, the airports, hotels, residential buildings, the oil refineries of all its neighbors. That would be considered terrorism. And some say this is all a part of a war. But the funny thing is that those neighbors are not attacking Iran. So we'll see how that goes. And as for the Iranian government, it did not see the war coming. It did not see on February 28th that it was going to be attacked. So it looks like it's not seeing the end of the war as well. Okay, so we will discuss how Iran is winning and how Iran is losing. So it's not black and white. There are both sides of a coin. Okay, so let's start with how Iran is winning. First of all, it has shut down pretty much the Strait of Hormuz. It's so far more than 14 cargo ships have been attacked, and Iran is using unmanned boats, like remote controlled boats that have a lot of bombs, the explosive in them, and they just attack these ships. So it was trying to use the mines first. That was its plan A. But Trump has destroyed all the ships that lay the mines. So the new tactic seems to be using these kamikaze suicidal boats. And this is a huge loss for the global economy. About 300 or so ships are stuck in the Persian Gulf. They're not able to go through the Strait of Hormuz. The price of oil is skyrocketing, and along with all the other things that depend on petrochemicals like plastics, fertilizers, natural gas, all kinds of stuff. So it's pretty bad for the world economy. So take, for example, India. It has only 40 days of reserves of the oil. So that's pretty scary. And in many places already, the governments are placing restrictions on cars. You see from China, there are videos of hundreds and hundreds of cars lined up at a gas station. And as for Iran, it's attacking all the critical infrastructure as well. It has bombed the oil refineries, oil storage tanks, and because, I mean, also these countries are not able to export the oil, they are slashing production or even shutting down some of the oil fields and gas fields. And for some of them, it may take weeks or months to restart them, you know. So it's not like a switch you turn on, turn off. Apparently, it's a very, very complex process. And so, from Iran's point of view, this is a success because its goal is to inflict a lot of pain on its neighbors and the global economy, which would force the US and Israel to stop the war and to have a ceasefire. Okay, so that's the goal behind all this madman strategy. But Iran has also succeeded in damaging and destroying a lot of the US military bases. About 12 sites in the region have been attacked by Iran. So these are like the US military bases, US radars, USA, I mean, the embassies, and things of that nature. So this is pretty bad news for the US. It has lost some of its, or I mean, maybe not lost, but degraded or damaged uh, some of the biggest radars. Like the one in Qatar is worth like $1 billion. So we will get more information, uh, in the future. And the US and its allies are also running out of interceptors, right? So Iran is sending all these ballistic missiles and drones, and the US is now forced to bring the THAAD, uh, the missile defense system, from South Korea all the way to the Middle East. So that's pretty bad news for the US. And the way that Iran is able to keep running its operations, even though many, many of its top leaders have been killed and they keep getting killed. And most of its military buildings, the IRGC buildings, the intelligence buildings, the infrastructure, they all have been destroyed. The war keeps going on. It's because of what they use as the mosaic defense. So it's very distributed. So even if they lose the people in Tehran, there are, so Iran has 31 provinces. And now, in terms of military, it's as if there are 31 different countries with their own decision makers. Thus, it doesn't matter if the US kills the people in Tehran, all these military guys in different provinces are doing what they want to do, and they have full autonomy. That's why Iran is able to survive. And they're using, for example, the drones, which have been very powerful in terms of inflicting damages. But the amazing thing is that it costs only about $7,000. So what the drones are basically you take like the engine of a motorcycle, you put the fiberglass body, and you attach the explosives, about 100 pounds of the explosives, and some GPS, the electronic signal system. Okay, that's it. So it costs about $7,000, but it can travel 2,000 kilometers, and it can go and destroy, hotels, buildings, radars, and they travel at about 100 miles per hour. So it's not too fast, but it's very, very effective. It's the drones are going to be the future of the war. And I think in the future wars, we will see countries using tens of thousands of drones to attack one another. And of course, the new progress, I'll go into that later, is also how to bring down these drones in a relatively cheap manner. Because initially, the US was using like $1 million interceptor to bring down these drones. But now there are newer technologies and ideas. Okay, so that is how Iran is winning. They're able to control the Strait of Hormuz, and they're able to inflict a lot of pain with uh, the ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and drones. Okay. Now let's see how Iran is losing. Okay. So for starters, Iran is all alone. Okay. It's not getting any help from any of its neighbors. Well, in fact, it's, basically bombing all its neighbors. It has bombed like 12, 13 countries so far. So pretty much everyone hates Iran right now. Okay. And even Russia and China are not helping Iran. There was a UN resolution that passed at the UN Security Council, and 13 of the 15, they blamed Iran, and they said that Iran must stop its actions against its neighbors. And Russia and China could have vetoed it, but they didn't. They just abstained. So that's a really bad sign for Iran. And the big thing is, of course, the supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, was killed in the beginning of the war on February 28th, and he has not even had a funeral. Okay, 2 weeks. Uh, Iran is too afraid to hold a funeral, because if there's a funeral, then all the top leadership must show up. And if they show up, the US and Israel are going to kill them. So it's pretty uh, sad and pretty pathetic that Iran is not able to hold a funeral for its supreme leader. Now, how about his son? He has now been deemed or anointed as the next supreme leader, and it's been more than 3 days, and nobody has seen him. Okay, there's no photo of him, there's no video, he hasn't showed up in public, he hasn't even recorded like the audio message. Okay, the best they could do was somebody read a statement. The female anchor on the Iranian state television read a statement saying that it's from Mojtaba Khamenei, but what do we know? So the rumor is that he's either dead or he's in coma, and that he doesn't even know that he is the new supreme leader. So that's in terms of public relations, that's a terrible blow for Iran. Okay. And so many of its top leaders are dead. In the first day, about 50 leaders, like the defense minister, the IRGC, the chief of staff, the intelligence, etc., all killed, killed, killed. And then they tried to replace them, and many of those new replacements have also been killed by the US and Israel. So, pretty bad news for Iran. Okay. And it has not really been able to hurt Israel or the US. No, before the war started, they were saying, and there were also so many experts, even from the US, they were all saying, oh, now Iran has hypersonic missiles and so many other missiles. And on just day one, Iran will be able to sink the aircraft carriers, which are like sitting ducks, and and then Iran will destroy the Zionists, death to America, death to Zionism. But, 14 days into the war, nothing has happened. Maybe about 7 to 10 Americans have died and some damages to the military bases. But none of the aircraft carriers have been affected, and the U.S. and Israel have full dominance over the air in Iran, and especially in Tehran. They're just flying drones and planes all over Tehran. They are bombing whatever they want, whenever they want. The U.S. has bombed 6,000 targets within Iran. 6,000. And the Israelis have bombed more than that, like around 9,000. So 15,000 targets have been bombed in Iran. So this is like all the buildings of the government, all the buildings of the IRGC, military, intelligence, missile defense systems, radars, air defense, and even police stations and besiege the paramilitary. So it's pretty devastated, and even the oil depot in Tehran. And if the US wants, it can really wreck Iran, right? They can bomb all the electricity, all the water, uh, the oil refineries, the seaports, all of that, it could be easily destroyed. And but the US is holding back because the US wants to do a regime change, and then it wants the new government to be successful, sort of like the Venezuela model. And another big bad news for Iran is that it's not able to fire missiles anymore. I mean, or even the drones. So from the first day of the war, the number of missiles that Iran can fire has dropped by 96%. Okay. So yesterday, it fired only 9 ballistic missiles. So that's down from 100, but 350 or so. So it's, and that's because the Americans are bombing all these missile launchers, missile factories, and missile cities. So the missile cities are those the underground cities with hundreds or thousands of missiles, and the Americans are dropping bunker busting bombs. They're using drones to destroy all these missile launchers. So about maybe 90% of the missile launchers have already been destroyed. And without missile launchers, you cannot launch the missiles, even if you have missiles. So the drones are much easier to launch. They don't need those very high tech and the expensive trucks to launch. But even the drones are down 90%. So that means that the Americans are very successful in hunting down the locations where the drones are being launched. And worse, almost 100% of the missiles and the drones are now being shot down by the other countries. Like the UAE yesterday shot down all of the missiles and the drones and the cruise missiles and the ballistic missiles that uh, Iran fired upon them. And as for Israel, uh, they're doing a pretty good job, maybe not 100%, but like say 90%, 95%. So no big damage to Israel. And all the Israelis, they have shelters that they can run into as soon as these sirens start. So the U.S. has all these satellites and other radars to monitor the Iranian land. So they know as soon as a ballistic missile is fired or even drones are launched, and then the Israelis go into the shelter, and then when they fall or when they are intercepted, the Israelis go back to their homes. So it's not very effective, except that it causes a lot of psychological pressure. Okay. And also, they kept, people are always saying, oh, Iran had these hypersonic missiles, and this is just, 4D chess. So basically, what Iran is doing is by firing the older rockets, the missiles, and the drones, they're just depleting all the interceptors. And once the Israelis run out of the interceptors, and then will come these mega super duper hypersonic missiles that is going to destroy the Zionists. Okay. But it doesn't look like that's really happening. And the other problem that Iran faces is its own people are rooting against it. Okay. So there are so many videos coming out. You know, it's very hard because basically the government has shut down the internet for the last 2 weeks. So very, very few people can get access to the internet, like maybe 1% chance if somebody keeps trying, or maybe somebody has a Starlink and they can use that. But the problem is that these people are cheering, okay? When the news of Khamenei came out, people were running. Okay. So people were actually running onto the street and they were all shouting, "Death to Khamenei, death to Khamenei." And now you see people laughing and cheering when they see the bombing because they know that the bombing is only done to the military and the repressive tools of the regime, and the civilians are safe. So you see people showing victory sign, people playing music with the bombing in the background, and they're saying, "Thank you, Mr. Trump. We love you, Mr. Trump." Uh, so they may be, these people are just waiting to revolt against the regime. And that's why in the last 2 days on state television, there are people coming and saying, but if you protest, we will treat you as the enemy, as a war enemy, and we will kill you. We have our fingers on the trigger, and we are going to make your mothers mourn your death. So this is pretty horrible, and it's also desperation, and it shows that the Iranian regime is totally afraid of its own people. Now, back to the military, the entire navy of Iran has been destroyed. So far, the US has destroyed 60 plus vessels. And that includes about 15 mine-laying vessels. These vessels, they lay the mines that will, uh, destroy the cargo ships and other Navy ships. So the U.S. has destroyed all these ships. And as for the Air Force, for starters, Iran has only very old jets from the 1960s and maybe the early 1970s. So they're not really using it, but the US and Israel are just destroying all these planes that are uh, parked on the runway. So the Air Force is destroyed, the Navy is destroyed, and the ground forces are also being destroyed. The US just dropped a mother of all bombs on one of these places that store all the armored vehicles and the tanks. So the US might be preparing for a ground invasion of sort. And the Iranian government knows that it cannot defend itself. So what it's doing is, for example, it's parking random cars on all the runways at the airport in Tehran. Okay, so that is the only way that they can try to stop the American planes from landing, which is kind of surprising. I thought they would have all these shoulder-powered uh, you know, uh, uh, the shoulder-powered missiles that they can use to fight American helicopters and the airplanes. But apparently, they don't have that. So they have to park the cars at the airports. And, finally, what's happening is that the Israelis are flying drones over Tehran at nighttime, and they are looking for all these police checkpoints and the besiege, the paramilitary checkpoints, and they are destroying them. Okay, it's like a suicide drone, boom, and then the besiege checkpoint is dead. So that's pretty shocking, and it must also be uh, demoralizing for all these thugs who are threatening to kill the Iranian citizens. Okay. Now, in 2024, 2 years ago, Gaman, the organization based out of the Netherlands, did an anonymous poll in Iran. And at that time, 70% of the Iranians said they wanted to end the Islamic Republic of Iran. So they want the country to go back to being secular as it was for a long time, before the 1979 revolution. So I think that number is probably now much higher. Maybe 90% of the Iranians want to end this whole Islamic Republic, the supreme leader, and just want to be in a normal secular country. Now, why is the regime not surrendering? Okay. So one is obviously the ideology. They don't, there's a lot of power for so many people, the religious people, the ayatollahs, mullahs, the morality police, uh, and you can think of all the judges, the lawyers, the professors, right? There's a whole section of the society that benefits from this religious theocracy. So they don't want to lose power. Now, number two is money. So if you look at the IRGC, which is the Islamic Republic Guards Council, is a parallel military. Okay, so Iran has its normal military, and then the IRGC, which is a personal military of the supreme leader. Okay, and the IRGC controls about half of the economy. So they control uh, banks, transportation, seaports, the oil refineries, nuclear program, ballistic missiles, so many things about the Iranian economy. And there's a lot of corruption, a lot of nepotism. So they not only don't want to lose power, they know that if they lose power, all their crimes, financial crimes, are going to be exposed. Okay. And not to mention, they have killed so many hundreds of thousands of Iranians over the last 47 years, right? So just in January alone, at least 36,000 protesters were killed. So the IRGC and the besieged, they go around the cities with machine guns in the back of pickup trucks, and they just shoot people. And then the besieged, they carry guns, and they, like say 40, 50 of them would travel in a group on motorbikes, and they're fully armed with, you know, rifles, the AK-47, and they can shoot whoever they want. And there are videos of them just randomly shooting people. And uh, so these people all know that if the regime falls, the people are going to hang them. Okay, they're going to beat them up. They're going to hang them from the cranes. So there are like hundreds of thousands of these besiege all over the country, and they're all very scared for their lives. So they're going to fight till the end. Okay. So what is happening now is sort of like the Monty Python movie. If you remember, there is this British king walking through the forest, and there is a knight, a black knight, who says, "Nobody can, uh, go past me. You have to fight me." And then the king chops off one of the arms of the knight. And then the knight goes, "Oh, come on, pansy, fight with me." And then the king chops off the second arm. And then the knight says, "Well, come back. I'm going to kick you." And then the king chops off both the legs. And then the knight keeps screaming, "Come on, you coward. I'm going to bite you." So that is what is happening with Iran. It has now zero chance of winning militarily. It has nothing except, some missiles and drones and suicide boats. Okay, So it's only hope is I'm going to keep on carrying out terrorism until you sign the ceasefire. Okay, so this is not a military strategy. This is kind of a terrorist strategy. Now, what could happen is number one, there could be like a coup. Okay, so maybe there are some people who are not big fans of martyrdom. Maybe they want to live. So they're going to overthrow the hardliners, and they'll make a deal with the U.S. That's one possibility. The second possibility is that the U.S. and Israel may pause the war and then let the government collapse on its own in a few months because it has no money, it has no military. So that's the second possibility. And the third possibility is that the US might take over what is known as the Karg, the island. Okay, it's a small island in the southwestern part of Iran, but it's responsible for 90% of the oil, the exports. So there's a chance that maybe Trump will send some paratroopers or soldiers on boats to go capture the Karg Island and then squeeze the Iranian economy further. That's a possibility. Now, in the bigger picture, the U.S. And the world cannot allow this regime to survive. Because, for one, this is just a blackmail, right? If we back off, then Iran can use the same tactics to get whatever it wants. So it can say, lift the sanctions, or I'm going to block the Strait of Hormuz. Give me $100 billion, or I will bomb Kuwait, Qatar, UAE, Saudi Arabia, right? So this is just a ridiculous proposition. No one country can be allowed to blackmail the world. So they have to do a regime change. So we will see how it happens. I think the next 1 to 2 weeks, the Iranian regime will fall, very likely. I would say 90% chance. Nothing is certain in life. So we'll see how it goes. All right, that's about it. Hope you enjoyed it. Please like and share. Thank you. Bye now.